The fourth leading scorer in the entire NBA might get traded this summer. So might a two-time MVP, a former Finals MVP, and a 26-year-old who used to be the face of his franchise. Here's the thing about the 2026 offseason. The free agent class is one of the weakest in years, which means all the real drama is happening on the trade block. And that trade block is absolutely loaded with stars. So let's count them down. 5 NBA stars who could be wearing a brand new jersey before next season tips off, building all the way up to the one name that has the entire league holding its breath. We start in Sacramento, with the trade everybody wants to happen and nobody can figure out how to pull off. Zach LaVine is a two-time All-Star and a career 20-point scorer, and the Kings would love to get him off their books. The problem is that monster contract. He's heading into the final year of a 5-year, $215 million deal, with a player option worth nearly $49 million that he's fully expected to pick up. Remember how he even got to Sacramento? LaVine was the centerpiece of the 3-team blockbuster that shipped De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio at last year's deadline. It's been a disaster for the Kings ever since. When he was healthy this year, the scoring was still there, around 19 points a game on 48% shooting, before a hand injury ended his season in February. But here's the brutal reality. Around the league, LaVine's trade value is considered close to zero, which means the Kings might actually have to attach a draft pick just to convince someone to take that salary. After a 22-60 disaster of a season, both sides clearly want a divorce. The only question is whether anyone's willing to say yes. If you're enjoying the breakdown so far, do me a quick favor and smash that like button. It genuinely helps the channel out. Now for the name that makes no sense at all, a former Finals MVP coming off the best season of his entire career. With Jason Tatum sidelined almost all year recovering from a torn Achilles, Jaylen Brown carried Boston on his back. He averaged 28.7 points a game, fourth most in the entire NBA, dragged the Celtics to 56 wins and the number 2 seed in the East, and put himself squarely in the MVP conversation. And yet, somehow, Boston still flamed out in the first round, losing a Game 7 at home to the Sixers. So why is he on this list? 2 words: Giannis Antetokounmpo. Boston has been openly linked to a run at Giannis, and if that deal ever materializes, Jaylen Brown is the centerpiece going the other way. Insiders have already named the Hawks, the Rockets, and the Trailblazers as teams circling, just in case the Celtics decide to listen. The front office keeps shooting the rumors down, and with 3 years left on his deal, there's no urgency. But Brown just listed his Boston penthouse for sale. Probably nothing. Probably. At number 3 is the player almost every insider agrees is the second most likely star to move this summer, behind only the name at number 1. Kawhi Leonard just quietly put together one of the best years of his career. A career-high 27.9 points a game across 65 games, good enough for 7th in MVP voting. This is a 2-time champion and 2-time Finals MVP. When he's right, he's still a top 10 player in the world. The catch? He turns 35 next month and he's owed $50 million next season. And the Clippers are clearly in transition. They shipped James Harden to Cleveland and Ivica Zubac to Indiana at the deadline, picking up the 5th overall pick in the process. To most of the league, that screams rebuild. And a rebuilding team has no business paying a 35-year-old $50 million. There's just one obstacle, and his name is Steve Ballmer. The Clippers owner reportedly loves Kawhi, already killed one trade to Golden State back in February, and there's real skepticism around the league that he'll ever actually pull the trigger. Add in an ongoing league investigation into how the Clippers even paid Leonard, and this might be the messiest situation on the entire list. Quick question while we're here, drop it in the comments. If Kawhi does get moved, which contender should go all in to land him? Number 2 is the saddest story on this list, a former franchise cornerstone who's about to get sold for parts. Just a few years ago, Ja Morant was the most electric young guard in basketball, the number 2 overall pick, a 2-time All-Star. Now the Grizzlies have completely torn it down around him. They traded Desmond Bane last summer, dealt Jaren Jackson Jr. in February, and stockpiled a mountain of draft picks to rebuild around a young core. Morant doesn't fit that timeline, and the relationship has soured. He clashed with the coaching staff over the offense, and just this week, one insider reported that a trade is expected within the month. With Memphis selling low, the same way the Hawks dumped Trae Young mid-season. The problem is the package. Morant played just 20 games this year before an elbow injury ended things. He's appeared in fewer than 80 games over the last 3 seasons combined, and he's owed $87 million over the next 2 years. So teams have real questions about his availability, his attitude, and his production. A 26-year-old this talented should net a fortune. Instead, Memphis might have to take whatever it can get. And number 1, was there ever any doubt? Giannis Antetokounmpo is the single biggest domino in the NBA, and the entire offseason is waiting on him to fall. Even in an injury-shortened year, he averaged 27.6 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 5.4 assists on a ridiculous 62% from the field. This is a 2-time MVP and the man who carried Milwaukee to a title in 2021. Still, unquestionably, a top 3 player on the planet. But the Bucks went 32-50 and missed the playoffs entirely, and Giannis is essentially on an expiring deal. He can hit free agency as soon as 2027, which gives him enormous leverage, and Milwaukee knows it can't afford to lose him for nothing. So the suitors are lining up. The Miami Heat are reportedly the frontrunners, with the noise around Miami louder than all the rest. Portland's new ownership is pushing hard. And yes, Boston is lurking, which brings us right back to Jaylen Brown. Milwaukee's owners say they want this resolved by the draft, though some reporting suggests it could drag deep into the summer. The market's been described as surprisingly tepid. But make no mistake, whenever Giannis moves, he turns whoever lands him into an instant title contender and reshapes the entire league in a single trade. So there's your list: LaVine, Brown, Leonard, Morant, and the Greek freak himself. 5 stars, 5 very different situations, and one summer that could completely redraw the NBA map. The dominoes are stacked. Giannis falls first and everyone else tumbles after him. If you want to be ready when these trades actually drop, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the breakdowns. And let me know down below, which one of these stars do you think gets traded first?